stormtroopers are just incompetent idiots. Can't we just get one bit of Star Wars media where the main icons of the series can be threatening?
Yeah, okay. Whenever someone says they're a fan of Cosmonaut Variety Hour, just ask them which Cosmonaut Variety Hour they're a fan of.
You might think it's a little strange that I'm judging a comic book movie based on the comic that it takes its material from, because I usually don't do that. I usually like to judge these as completely separate stories. But when the comic is done so much better than the movie, it's hard to ignore.
Don't hurt the face, I'm an actor.
No, my stupid, corny cartoon villain wasn't represented the same way he was in the comics. Yeah, well, get over it, alright? I read a lot of comics, and if I got mad every time something was different, I would have died of a heart attack back when I saw Fantastic Four. But when the comic is done so much better than the movie, it's hard to ignore. Yeah, well, get over it, alright?
He has serious trouble sticking to any position.
There are some people who are claiming that it is impossible to blow up a fleet by slamming into it with the hyperdrive. To those people, I have this to say.
You're a creep! Go away! We're having a good time until you showed up, jeepers!
No, but all joking aside, shut the f*** up, you goddamn idiots! It's a movie about space wizards. There are no f***ing rules. Stop making shit up to be mad about. Analyze a film like a regular person and don't pick apart shit with made-up fantasy facts. The new Inquisitors use their weird gimmicky lightsaber to fly like a helicopter. I'm sorry, but this is ridiculous. Anyone who takes this show seriously needs to just look at this. Imagine if during the fateful battle between Luke and Vader, one of them twirls their sword around and flies away. That's not how the Force works. There are no f***ing rules. Stop making shit up to be mad about. That's not how the Force works. Good and bad. The movie is about failure. That's a constant theme throughout it, which is good for the second act in a trilogy. Yoda literally shows up in this movie to tell the audience that the theme is failure and how to take that failure and learn from it. The movie focuses on every character failing and learning from it, and the only character who doesn't learn anything is Kylo Ren, and he suffers for it, ultimately getting defeated in the end of the movie. The idea of good and evil. Benicio del Toro's character flat out tells us that good and evil don't exist in this world. However, Star Wars has famously been about good versus evil, light versus dark, and many people have cited this as a major flaw against the series.
But don't you see the problem? They tell the audience so bluntly, it's incredibly on the nose. Let's start off with failure first. While I agree it's a good thing for a second movie in the trilogy, the main issue that mostly applies to Luke. Luke already learned about failure in the OT. He had multiple failures, especially in Empire Strikes Back. Having him learn this again is just tedious. The movie brings down his character just to have him learn his lesson again. This lesson should apply to Rey because she is the main protagonist of this trilogy. But Rey is the only main character in this movie not to have an arc, which is not a good thing that the main character doesn't have an arc in the first two movies in a three-part story. She doesn't grow or change. She doesn't have any real form of failure in this movie. Before you say she wasn't able to bring Kylo Ren back to the light side, her actions caused the death of Supreme Leader Snoke. And while she didn't get what she wanted, it still caused the downfall of the First Order's head of state. And besides that, afterwards she faces no consequences for it, she gets away scot-free. And 5 minutes later she celebrates shooting down TIE fighters and lifts half a mountain.
Triple kill.
Rey doesn't have any development, she actively contradicts this movie's themes due to her being a Mary Sue. Now let's get into the morality theme. Same issue also applies here, as that it's so on the nose it is lazily delivered. Another issue is that DJ tells this to Finn. He tells Finn that there's good and bad on both sides of the war. But Finn should already know that there is good in the First Order. He was raised to be a stormtrooper / janitor. He'll have likely have made friends with other stormtroopers, and he knows that like him they were taken from their families as well. Finn more than anybody should know this, but for some reason he acts surprised when he hears this. There is no example of evil in the Resistance in this trilogy. There is no example to support this theme. Closest thing that supported this so far was Holdo. In our first viewing, we are led to believe that she's a traitor that's trying to lead the Resistance to their death, but we all know how that turned out. It's made worse by the fact that at the end of the movie, Finn tries to sacrifice himself to save the Resistance. He retains nothing that DJ told him earlier, since it doesn't influence anything he does in this movie or in TROS, made utterly pointless. themes of this movie are incredibly overblown, and trying to defend this movie with themes is not going to work because themes are meant to supplement a film, not completely carry it. And unlike what you said, Star Wars has always had its themes, and trying to say this movie is the only film in the series that tries something new is completely ludicrous. The other films have always been new and revolutionary in some ways, whether it's character writing or journeys, or effects that shape how movies are made today. This is not.
This movie is actually trying to fucking say something different. It has flaws, but I have to give props to the only Star Wars movie that tried something new.
Wrong!
Last Jedi is interesting because it actually flips everything around. This movie has heroes who act like selfish assholes and villains who do heroic things.
What heroes act like selfish morons? I've already talked about why Finn's the only true competent one out of the cast. And Kylo killing Snoke wasn't heroic thing since he had an ulterior motive to lead the two factions of the war die to start his own galaxy-wide order, until it's immediately dropped and he just takes control of First Order again. That's not anything heroic. And he tries to turn Rey to the dark side, so him saving her from Snoke is made a moot point.
Last Jedi also changes the status quo for the final film. The First Order is now the dominant force in the galaxy, but it's being run by an emotionally confused lunatic and screaming Bill Weasley.
No, this is not a status quo change. It was already reset in The Force Awakens, make the good guys the underdog, bad guys to be the dominant force, just like the OT. The First Order being run by Kylo Ren is not a good thing. The bad guys are being run by a whiny, inconsistent, incompetent man-child that's already been defeated in this trilogy before. And since Hux has turned to clown in this movie, it's hard for me and many others to take him seriously as a threat anymore. No wonder they had to bring in Palpatine. He's the only thing that's greater than Snoke when it comes to being a threat for heroes to take down. Otherwise, there would basically be no stakes. All knew what would happen because of Rey's godlike power level.
So there are a lot of things to complain about as far as The Last Jedi is concerned. Some of these points are valid and some are not so valid. Like I said, to the people who honestly don't like the plot holes or the bad writing or any of that stuff, I hear you. Really, I do. This movie is flawed, but I do think it does something special. I'm gonna say something daring, but I honestly believe that every Star Wars movie sucks. I am one of the biggest Star Wars fans, but you gotta admit, this shit's dumb. But it's still awesome. We just make different excuses for the Star Wars movies that we enjoy.
Really? You think they all suck? You made a video defending The Force Awakens. You talked about Solo, how great of a movie it apparently is. It's not. You talked about A New Hope and Empire are great movies, that A New Hope is your favorite Star Wars movie. They all suck. Why you spend half this video defending a movie that you gave a 7 out of 10? Do you realize you're making excuses to try to defend this movie? How is that any different from us making excuses for defending in the other films?
Talk to people who hate The Last Jedi, but then they say they love the prequels. They come up with excuses for why those movies are good. In my video on The Force Awakens, I addressed this issue a bit more, so I'm not going to go into it again, but basically, this is the kind of series where you really need to just accept the dumb stuff and enjoy the stuff that you like.
This is some of the worst film criticism I've ever heard. Accept the dumb stuff? Then how do you come to the conclusion that the prequels are bad but the sequels are good? How come you can't accept the dumb stuff in the prequels? This line makes any criticisms you've made against Star Wars incredibly hypocritical.
In Return of the Jedi, you get a whole subplot centered around fucking Care Bears. And this is the kind of series where you really need to just accept the dumb stuff and enjoy the stuff that you like. Yeah, she's only 16 years old. She's only 16 years old, and she has this much shit that's happened to her. Can you guys understand why I might be a little disappointed in this kind of storytelling? She couldn't be more Mary Sue unless she was also Force sensitive, which at this point wouldn't even really surprise me. This is the kind of series where you really need to just accept the dumb stuff and enjoy the stuff that you like. Engaging way. Everybody kind of talks the same, and it's really awkward? Like, who the fuck talks like this?
This is incredible. We recommend a commission be sent to Naboo to ascertain the truth.
The Congress of Malastare concurs with the honorable delegate from the Trade Federation.
This is the kind of series where you really need to just accept the dumb stuff and enjoy the stuff that you like. Nowhere near as bad as people say it is. And the worst thing that I hate in the whole world is when people try to say, The Last Jedi is an objectively bad film.
Nigga, no.
An objective review of The Last Jedi would look like this.
Star Wars Episode 8 is a movie. This movie has characters.
One of those characters is named Luke Starkiller. There is no Boba Fett in this movie.
This is an obvious pot shot at Mauler. I'm sorry, Cosmonaut, but you're terrible at your job. I've shown some clips of things he said in his other works in this series, whether things he's gotten blatantly wrong or a contradiction. And that's the exact problem with Cosmonaut, is that he's so horrendously inconsistent and contradictive. Mauler showcased this very well in his TFA Part 3 video. Taught us in a very condescending fashion that there's no objectivity in film criticism, but make objective assessments right after this.
Make the worst fucking arguments when it comes to this movie. We all know that if this fucking monster showed up in The Last Jedi without having been in Empire Strikes Back, there would be people saying, oh, how come that worm can breathe in space? What an objectively bad movie. Bombs can't fall in space. Admiral Akbar died. Luke was mean. Green milk. Those elements do not make a movie bad. Poorly developed character arcs, a badly paced story, and misplaced inappropriate humor do contribute to a movie being kinda crappy.
Don't you realize that those are objective statements? You say at one point there's no objectivity, and then turn around and point to problems in the movie. And you're quick to tell us that if we like the prequels, we're brainwashed.
I'd only been alive for 6 years. I still vividly remember going to the theater in 1999 to see a brand new Star Wars movie. So did George follow up with a faithful continuation to the franchise? No, he fucking shit all over it. These movies are bad. They're awful. And for some reason, this is now some kind of hot take. I feel like I'm living in an alternate dimension because people are actually trying to tell me these movies are good now. You have to literally be brainwashed in order to like them. The only people who like them are either children or people who watch them as children. And unfortunately, these children grew up into people with very strong opinions. And they want you to think these movies are secretly art. Well, they aren't. They suck. They're bad movies, and I do not want to watch.
So as I said, Cosmonaut is terrible at his job. Unlike you, Mauler's consistent, pays attention to the movie, and isn't strawmanning or condescending, he makes good arguments. Well, most of the time, that is. Anyway, at the end of the videos, Cosmonaut gives TLJ a 7 out of 10, but I think most of us can agree that it's a 2 out of 10. Both these videos were awful. They're inconsistent, they get many things wrong, and they misrepresent the opposition. Hope you can see why I'm not a fan of Cosmonaut and why he isn't a good critic. If you want some quality critics, I recommend Mauler, Critical Drinker, Cynical Reviews, and Robot Head. Those guys are way better than Cosmonaut in every conceivable way. Those guys are just the only ones I can think of top of my head. There's way more than just them, but Cosmonaut just sucks. Anyway, thanks for watching, folks. If you liked this video, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, join my Discord. But remember,